Psalms 49, verse 11. Their inward thought is that their houses shall continue forever, and their dwelling places to all generations. They call their lands after their own names. First, I want to say, call Allah, all glory, honor, and praises due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakadash. I want to give double honors to my elders and apostles of Great Millstone who teach and rule well. I want to say peace and salutations to the hopeful elect out there. And right now we're at the end, of this kingdom, of this age of Esau, Edom, the so-called white man's kingdom. And, the other heathen nations' powers as well. Because if we go to Psalms 83, it tells you who the Israelites' enemies are, The chosen people of Yahweh Shem Shai, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans have enemies on the earth. And it's basically all nations on the earth that are the enemies of the Israelites. So go to Psalms 83. It tells you all of our enemies there, And our main enemy, our arch nemesis, is Esau Edom, the so-called white man. He's in rulership right now. So Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, they're making prophecy happen, and they're letting us know that, we're in the end of the end, in the last days at this point in time, because we've seen prophecy fulfilling off these pages, man. It's coming to a close, but, the heathen nations and even two-thirds of our own people, of the Israelites, think that this is going to continue forever, and that Yahweh Shai won't ever come on the earth and rule over everyone with the 144,000 under him, But soon they'll realize, when that Jacob trouble hits, they'll realize, the truth of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. Jeremiah 49, verse 10. But I have made Esau bare. I have uncovered his secret places, and he shall not be able to hide himself. His seed is spoiled, and his brethren and his neighbors, and he is not. So Yahweh Shem Shai revealed who the devil of the Bible was during these end days. Now everyone in the world knows who the devil is, and it's the so-called white man. Because Yahweh Shai said himself, you'll know them by their fruits. And, the fruits of the so-called white man, his works are just wickedness, rape, kill, and rob the entire earth. In the scriptures it says that Babylon the Great, the so-called white man, is the hammer of the earth, because the so-called white man weakened all the nations because of its wicked doings, its wicked dealings with the nations. So Esau is being made known to the world, the so-called white man's the devil, and his seed will be spoiled. Basically, his seed being spoiled means is that his seed is going into slavery. The so-called white man, white woman, the children, they're going into slavery in the kingdom of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, when Yahweh Shai returns and rules. And that goes for the other heathen nations as well. The only ones that are not going into slavery are the Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, and all the Israelites scattered across the world that look like the heathen nations on the outside, but their sea line goes back to Israel. It goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because Israelites are scattered all across the world. So you're going to have some Israelites that look like the other nations, but, their sea line goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So when we go to verse 12, for thus saith the Lord Yahweh, behold, they whose judgment was not to drink of the cup have assuredly drunken, and art thou he that shall all together go unpunished? So Yahweh Ba'ashem Shai is saying, the Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, and, the Israelites scattered that look like the heathen nations on the outside, they drink their cup, They drink their cup of punishment by Yahweh Shem Shai. And now Yahweh Shem Shai, you think you're going to escape Esau, Edom, and all the other heathen nations? You think you're going to escape? Nah, man, Yahweh Shem Shai, remember what you did to us, to the Israelites. He remembered how you did us, the apple of Yahweh Shem Shai's eyes, how you treated Yahweh Shem Shai's people. He remembered that. Now, as it says in scriptures, 1 day is as 1,000 years to the Lord, and 1,000 years as 1 day. So it's really been 2 days to Yahweh Shem Shai. They'll probably be going on the third day. And it's like, Yahweh Shem Shai remembers all the wickedness that was done to the Israelites by the heathen nations. So he's telling us that the heathen nations are not going to be unpunished. Continuing in verse 12, thou shalt not go unpunished, but thou shalt surely drink of it. Verse 13, for I have sworn by myself, saith the Lord Yahweh, that Basra, and Basra speaking of Babylon the Great, aka America, shall become a desolation, a reproach, a waste, and a curse, and all the cities thereof shall be perpetual waste. How's that going to happen? All of America will be turned into a lake of fire by ICBM missiles. That's the final judgment to America, the ICBM missiles. 200 million plus ICBM missiles hitting America. That's going to be a full wrath, pure anger from Yahweh Shem Shai for all the wickedness they've done to the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, the chosen people of Yahweh Shem Shai. Verse 14, I've heard a rumor from the Lord Yahweh, and ambassadors sent unto the heathen, saying, gather ye together, and come against her, and rise up to the battle. For lo, I will make thee small among the heathen, and despised among men. So right now, Yahweh Shem Shai is making Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, and white woman, despised among the heathen nations. The Moab, China, the Chinese, the Elam, Arabians, the Ammonites, the Japanese, all the heathen nations are despising the so-called white man, because now they're going into history and realizing that, the so-called white man is the devil, and a lot of people are starting to see that, especially with Trump, DJ Trump in office. He's, people thought Trump was going to save America, but he's making it worse. He's making his allies turn on America, which is ultimately fulfilling Bible prophecy. So all glory to Yahweh Bashem Shai, Bashem Kakadash for that. Donald Trump is making the beast hate the whore. Amazing times we're living in, man, for being a believer in Yahweh Bashem Shai. Verse 16, thy terribleness hath deceived thee in the pride of thine heart, O thou dwellest in the clefts of the rock, thou holdest the height of the hill. Though thou shouldest make thy nest as high as the eagle, or bring thee down from thence, saith the Lord Yahweh. So, actually, let me continue. 17, also Edom shall be a desolation. Everyone that go by it shall be astonished, and shall hiss at all the plagues thereof. Verse 18, as in the overthrow of Sodom and Gomorrah and the neighbor cities there, saith the Lord Yahweh, no man shall abide there, neither shall the Son of Man dwell in it. So Yahweh Shem Shai is going to destroy Babylon the Great, every inch of Babylon the Great, America, with ICBM missiles. Like, all those skyscrapers are going to be done away with. There won't be none, because Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, loves their natural habitats are caves and cliffs. They like being in the high seat. They like being on high points. So that's why there's so many skyscrapers, high rising buildings in Babylon the Great, America. Even with their satellites, Yahweh Shem Shai is going to use the chariots, the so-called UFOs, to take down the satellites and the jets. And, he's going to take down the military, Esau, Edom. He's going to shroud down Esau, Edom, and their military, everything. Yahweh Shem Shai is coming with vengeance. And it says, as it says in the scriptures, the slain of the Lord shall be many on that day of the Lord. Jeremiah 30, verse 16. Therefore all they that devour thee shall be devoured, and all thine adversaries, every one of them, shall go into captivity, and they that spoil thee shall be a spoil, and all that prey upon thee will I give for a prey. So basically, every single nation out in the world, outside of the 12 tribes of Israel, oppressed us. So when Yahweh returns, leading the 144,000, the governing body, ruling the earth, with Yahweh, on top of everyone, watching, ruling with them, all the heathen nations are going to slavery for 1,000 years straight, and we're going to give it to them hardcore, man. Like, if we're going to do unto them double and worse than they did to us, when we were in their slavery, man. It's as it says in the scriptures, man. Esau, Edom would have wished to never looked upon his brother Jacob. He would have wished to never looked upon the Israelites. That's how bad the Israelites are going to do the heathen nations in slavery. When the heathen nations are under the Israelites in slavery, when the house returns, it's going to be for 1,000 years straight of hardcore of bondage slavery for the heathen nations, of the Israelites ruling over the heathen nations with a rod of iron. And so it's enforcing the law, statutes, and commandments. Verse 17, for I will restore health unto thee, and I will heal thee of thy wounds, saith the Lord Yahweh, because they called thee an outcast, saying, this is Zion, whom no man seeketh after. So yeah, when we were going through our slavery, nobody helped us. Nobody cared. When they see Yahweh Ba'ashem was punishing us, they went even harder. So it's like, hey, I don't feel bad for all these heathen nations going into slavery and what we're about to do to them. Because, hey, when it was us, they showed us no mercy. It says in the scriptures that they showed us no mercy. So we're not going to show them any mercy. And anyone, for the 2/3 who wants to save Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, and all these other heathen nations, for the 2/3 of our people, of the Israelites that want to save the heathen nations from going to slavery, I pray that Yahweh Ba'ashem destroys you because you're weak. Man, these heathen nations don't give two shits about you. Man, if they could, they would destroy you. They would destroy you. But here you are, worrying about them when they don't worry about nothing at you at all. Man, if they could take our position of being the Israelites, they would. It's like, man, hey, you 2/3, y'all got to go, man. It's for real, y'all got to go. Micah 5, verse 15. And I will execute vengeance in anger and fury upon the heathen, such as they have not heard. This is Yahweh Ba'ashem Shai saying this. Like when we're in the kingdom, when Yahweh Shai is ruling with 144,000 under him, we're going to be bringing out harsh judgment upon all the heathen. We're not going to be showing them any mercy in the kingdom. The heathen, all heathen nations are going to be our slaves. So we're going to be putting them to work. And we're going to be, in our immortal bodies on top of that. So we can never get tired, while the heathen will get tired. And that's the funny thing. We're not going to have to lift the finger of doing work. We just tell the heathen what to do and they'll do it. It's really just that simple. Psalms 137, verse 7. Remember, O Lord Yahweh, the children of Edom in the day of Jerusalem, who said, raise it, even to the foundation thereof. And raise means the story. So the Edomites, the so-called white man, white woman, they were saying, destroy it, destroy the Israelites. And we're telling Yahweh Ba'ashem Shai to remember when we're on top, when we're ruling over the so-called white man and all these heathen nations, and all the heathen nations are slaves in the kingdom, remember how they wanted to destroy us. And so we're not going to show them any mercy when they're our slaves, because they wanted to just kill us. So it's like you 2/3 who wants to save these heathen nations, especially the so-called white man Man, Yahweh Shem Shah has you bugged out. These people were literally, Yahweh Shem Shah designed these heathens to want to destroy you Israelites, yet you are here trying to save them, even though they hate your spirit, hate your guts. Man, y'all bugged out. It is what it is. Verse 8, O daughter of Babylon, who art to be destroyed, happy shall he be that rewarded thee as thou hast served us. Hey, when we're in the kingdom, when the Israelites are over top ruling the heathen, we're going to be serving them, as it says in scriptures, we're going to be repaying them double of what they did unto us in slavery. So let's say they chopped off one of your hands in your past lives. Well, you get to chop off both of their hands in the current life you're in, when you're in rulership over the heathens. Verse 9, happy shall he be that take it and dash thy little ones against the stones. So you know how the heathen nations, they were, especially the so-called white men, Esau, Edom, the so-called white men, they were throwing our babies to the crocodiles, throwing them against trees. We're gonna be doing this. We're gonna be doing the same thing to them, to the heathen nations. When they have children, we're gonna be using their children as bait for animals. We're gonna be dashing their heads against the stones and all that. Yahweh Shemashah is gonna use us to fulfill his judgment, to fulfill Yahweh's anger against the heathen when we're in the kingdom ruling over the heathen with our spiritual powers on top of that. There will be no mercy for the heathens. This is Obadiah 1 verse 10. This is speaking to Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, the Caucasian nation, the Edomites, so-called white man, white woman. Verse 10, for thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. In the day that thou stoodest on the other side, in the day that the strangers carried away captive his forces, and foreigners entered into his gates, and cast lots upon Jerusalem, even thou wast as one of them. But thou shouldest not have looked on the day of thy brother in the day that he became a stranger, neither shouldest thou have rejoiced over the children of Judah in the day of their destruction, neither shouldest thou have spoken proudly in the day of distress. So Yahweh Shemashah, the Lord saying it, the Lord Yahweh Shemashah is saying to Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, you shouldn't even have looked upon the Israelites. You shouldn't even looked upon Jacob, because what you're about to get done, man, what you're about to experience in the kingdom when the Israelites are returning the reward of what you sowed. As it says in scriptures, you reap what you sow. You're going to reap what you sowed to the Israelites and double on top of that in the kingdom. The so-called Esau, Edom, so-called white man. Verse 13, thou shouldst not have entered in to give my people in the day of their calamity. Yeah, thou shouldst not have looked on their affliction in the day of their calamity, nor laid hands on their substance in the day of their calamity. Neither shouldst thou have stood in the crossway to cut off those of his that did escape, neither shouldst thou have delivered up of his that did remain in the day of distress. Now this is the key point, verse 15. For the day of the Lord Yahweh is near upon all the heathen. As thou hast done, it shall be done unto thee. Thy reward shall return upon thy own head. It's really that simple. We were in slavery, hardcore. The Israelites were so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans were in hardcore bondage slavery by the so-called white men and all the heathen nations upon the earth with the so-called white men. But now we're going to get to put them in slavery when Yahushua returns with the 144,000. We're going to get to put the heathens in slavery and do unto them as they've done to us. So, let's see, I'll keep continuing. Verse 16, for as ye have drunk upon my holy mountain, so shall all the heathen drink continually. Yeah, they shall drink, and they shall swallow down, and they shall be as though they had not been. So yeah, when it says the heathen shall drink continually, basically the heathen The heathens will drink of that cup of wrath, poured with no mixture by Yahweh Shem Shai. So basically, they're gonna have to endure hardcore punishment of bondage and slavery and all types of judgments that we're gonna be doing unto them for 1,000 years straight when we're in the kingdom. Verse 17, but upon Mount Zion shall be deliverance, and there shall be holiness, and the house of Jacob shall possess their possessions. So the Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, and the scattered Israelites that look like the heathen nations on the outside, but their sea line goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they're going to be back on top of the world, basically, and rule over all the heathens. Verse 18, and the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble. And they shall kindle in them and devour them. There shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for the Lord Yahweh hath spoken it. So the house of Jacob is the southern kingdom, the southern tribe, southern kingdom, Judah, Benjamin, Levi, and then the house of Joseph a flame. The house of Joseph are the northern kingdoms. That'll be your Latinos and Native Indians. And the house of Esau is a so-called white man, and a white woman. But they're gonna be house of stubble. There will be nothing left. There will be no remaining of the house of Esau, the so-called white man, so-called white woman, because Yahweh has spoken it. So when we're in the kingdom, we're gonna be fucking up. The Israelites will be messing up the white man and white woman so much they're gonna go extinct. Like that's how bad we're gonna do them in the kingdom of heaven. Psalms 58 verse 10, the righteous shall rejoice when he seeth the vengeance. He shall wash his feet in the blood of the wicked. So yeah, when the Israelites are in the kingdom, ruling over the heathen nations, with that rod of iron, they're going to be executing harsh judgment upon the heathen. So much to the point where there's going to be puddles of blood on the floor, and we're just be walking in blood all day. Literally. We're going to be fucking these heathen up in the kingdom. Revelation 13 verse 10. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and faith of the saints. It's like, man, yeah, call the law, all glory, honor, and praises due to Yahweh Ba'ashem Al-Shah Ba'ashem Kakadash. This is patience and faith of the saints, the Israelites. Starting with the elect. We're going to get our revenge on the heathen nations, especially our arch nemesis, the Edomites, the so-called white man. We're going to get our vengeance upon them. Just got to be patient. And Yahweh Shem Shai will come through on his own time. And we know that the end of this kingdom is near with all these signs. With that, I want to say, call Allah, all glory, honor, and praises due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Kakadash. I want to give double honors to my elders and apostles of Great Millstone who teach and rule well. I want to say peace and citations to the hopeful elect. Lord willingly, I pray that was an edifying lesson. And with that, I want to say shalom.